Gundam card game's fifth and final color has finally been revealed. It's not yellow, it's not black, but actually purple. Hey everybody, Espira, and we just got a dump of news for the Gundam card game, specifically because we finally got our first episode of what Bandai is calling the Link Station. This is effectively a news show to cover everything that's upcoming and everything in relation to the Gundam card game, which I love stuff like this. They tried to do these like direct style video series before for things like the Dragon Ball card game, all the way back forever ago. They do it here and there for things like One Piece. Digimon obviously get their panels at things like Digicon and stuff like that. So it is nice to see that for this game, they're going to have this dedicated way to be able to try and transfer that information. Hopefully they stay up with it. Hopefully it's consistent. If anything, I foresee it being similar to the way that Bushiroad does their like seasonal conferences. I think it'll be very much aligned to that kind of thing. But if it happens more often than that, all the better. So like I said, purple finally got revealed. Not too much in terms of what it does, but a lot of news surrounding the changes coming to the main game from the beta format and things to look forward to. So running it down, let's go over everything that we found out from the first Link Station. Before we dig more into it, if you guys want a place to be able to talk about the Gundam card game even more, you guys are definitely gonna want to check out my Discord community. We've got people while the live is going on, going back and forth, chatting, getting all hyped up. So if you're looking for a community to be able to talk Gundam card game, link's down there. So to kick it off, the cards are actually getting frame refreshes, which is nice. We weren't entirely sure what kind of changes we were going to see made for the game from beta edition all the way to the main set release. Granted, we did have like a 6-month period between beta and the full release, which is still a few months away. And when you figure from there, the cards had to get printed like a few months before that to even make it to the US and stuff like that. So quite a bit of time between when I would imagine the final development of the beta and where we are now. So specifically, few notable changes. First, the text is bigger, which is nice. It was kind of condensed on the smaller cards. They're chunkier now. They've also changed up the stat line so that they're actually white as opposed to colored. I like this change. It did, while the colored felt like thematic, it did always feel like there was something going on there that wasn't there specifically. And then finally, they added the little link icon there and pushed over the link requirements in the bottom box. I think this is great. A lot of people seem to get very confused specifically about how the linking works. I think that little extra indication will be very nice, especially since the cards just kind of seamlessly tie up together nicer when they're one on top of each other. In terms of the pilot cards, nothing too crazy. If you look at the bottom left corner of the cards, you'll notice that the pilot icon went from like the bottom vertical to sideways. And then if you look on any of the pilots that have any inheritable abilities or pair abilities, those have also been shifted from the bottom all the way to the top, essentially just making it consistent. Nothing too crazy there. There's a little bit of color change also. They go from a black to a gray when we're looking at linked pilots, maybe just to defer the boxes a little bit, but nothing too crazy there in terms of the pilots, just a little bit of cleanup and consistency changes. In addition to some new framing, we actually have some new keywording, which is great. I think there's a couple of things that happen so often in this game. The fact that they weren't keyworded kind of didn't make sense to me. So we're finally getting a during link, which is great. We've had a number of cards that say while linked as part of their text, and sometimes you got to dig for it. It's not immediately obvious. Now we have a during link keyword, and cards are going to be keyworded with that in mind, which I think is great, especially specifically for linking, because it is such a core component to the way that this game works. I have to imagine that there are going to be link abilities in every single set moving forward from set 1. So the fact that this specifically is highlighted and just makes it that much more clear that the ability is tied to being linked, I think is great. I think good change. I'm not saying that we need to become a keyword soup game, but when it comes to something that you are literally learning as the base rules of the game and it applies to like so many cards, no matter what deck you're playing, very relevant. So those are the changes coming with the beta edition, but shifting on over, we got some new card reveals, which is very exciting. So moving on to the starter decks, they actually revealed additional cards from the starter decks, which is great. So here we have for STO1, Unforeseen Incident. It's a burst where you get to activate its main. And for main action, you get to choose one enemy unit. It gets -3 AP during this turn. Pretty interesting, honestly, especially when you consider that like it effectively means that if you time it where your opponent's attacking you, you can get them down to 0, assuming that 3 AP or lower, and effectively turn it into a one-way trade. Massive, huge. You can use it on your turn. I don't know how much utility it will have, but I do know that people have been utilizing the command card that allows you to be able to give your blockers +2 AP. I think this is slightly different because obviously it doesn't allow you to trade up, but it does mean that you could be turning an equal trade into something that's just up your advantage. Costs you a card for it, but it's still a battle trick that I see welcome. I enjoy these kinds of battle tricks, especially as someone who came from Magic the fact that a lot of Bandai games just don't have the room for that because they don't have the timings for it, I think is really cool. I like the fact that we're playing into this kind of space now. Shifting on over to Wings of Advance. In STO2, we get Gundam Heavy Arms. So another Heavy Arms during pair. During your turn, when this unit destroys an enemy unit with battle damage, deal 1 damage to all enemy units that are level 3 or lower. Yo, that's huge. So I think it's like one of the first indications of any kind of, it's not a board wipe, but of like mass ping, you know? So I'm a big fan of this kind of ability. I love being able to control the boards, especially against aggro decks. Like imagine playing an aggro deck. They've got all their tokens. You swing, you destroy a unit, you kill everything. I think that's huge, especially since we've been seeing aggro kind of take more of a strong footing going into the beta format. Obviously, things will change incredibly when we get the full set release, but having cards like these and showing that they're okay with printing cards like these has me really jazzed in terms of having more mid-range and control options to be able to expand my deck building. Moving on to STO3, we actually have from Zeon's Rush Sinanju. So we already knew what Sinanju did, but now we finally have card text that isn't in Chinese, I believe. And additionally, we have new art. So I don't know if like this is the starter deck art, what was the old art that we got? I'm not entirely sure how that played out, but regardless, this art is sick. As a reminder, during pair, this unit gains high maneuver, and then during your turn, when this unit destroys an enemy shield area card with battle damage, choose 1 enemy unit, deal 2 damage to it. So really powerful ability. The thing is that it links with full frontal, which we didn't know what that did before until today. Full frontal is a level 6, which I mean kind of makes sense given that Sinanju himself is level 6, but like as a late game pilot, 1 cost, hopefully it's good. When paired, you may deploy 1 Neo Zeon unit card that is level 4 or lower from your hand. Okay, that's kind of juicy, right? You're going off and you're playing Sinanju, which is a 5/4. You're getting a +2/+2, bugging up all the way to a 7/6. And then from there, also it has a burst that adds to hand. But then from there, you get to also play another body on top of that. You get to destroy a shield, burn something. I don't know, maybe you end up playing like a Charizard 2 or something like that. I think there's a lot of tempo there that could be gained. And I love more of these late game options. So super exciting there in terms of being able to have some fun to play in red, right? Now we've got a little bit more red to feel kind of cohesive, especially in the beta format. Anything we can do to spice things up during this long wait period, all the better. And then shifting on over to STO4 Seed Strike, we have a brand new command that's very similar to White Base. Level 4, 2-cost command, Burst. If you have no Earth Alliance unit tokens in play, deploy 1 Ailstrike Gundam, which is a 3 AP, 3 HP blocker. Then on main, if you have no Earth Alliance tokens in play, deploy 1 Sword Strike Gundam, which is a 4/2, or 1 Launcher Strike Gundam, which is a 2/4, and they both have blocker. So really interesting. You can go for, you get a balanced 3/3 if you burst it, which I think is great. You get an aggressive blocker if you need it, or a defensive blocker. I think this is a high flexibility card, especially since they have the name Launcher Strike Gundam, they have the Earth Alliance. The only thing that they don't have are links, which are obviously very important, but I do love the flexibility of being able to have an aggressive blocker or a chunky blocker, depending on what part of the game you're at. I love that you get a 3/3 blocker on burst. That's absolutely huge in terms of late game. Legitimately could save you from dying. More so in a way than bases can sometimes. So very interesting. I love what this is doing. We actually get the tokens here as well. I will say it does feel a little jarring that we get like iconic suits, but as tokens. Oftentimes in other games, tokens are like throwaway characters, things that don't really matter, not characters of impact, surely not named suits that the main protagonist uses, right? So I think this is just something I'm gonna have to get used to. Very clearly, they want to lean on suits having a lot of flexibility between the cards that you play versus tokens, and that's fine. I think that's just something that mentally I'll have to get to adjust it to, but I think this is super cool. The cards look great, and I'm a big fan of what Striker Pack does. Shifting on over to the product schedule, we've actually seen this before. So we do know that in July, we're going to be getting the starter decks with a couple of weeks over getting the booster pack at GD01. And then we've seen this push schedule where we see that in September, we're getting another starter deck, STO5. And then the month after that, we're getting another starter deck, Clan Unity, which is going to be based around G-Quirks. Very excited for that one, alongside the release of GDO2. And then moving over to the winter, late 2025, early 2026, is when we're going to get STO7, STO8, and GDO3. So up until now, that's all we really know. We know that we're getting G-Quirks going into October, but we are going to have this starter deck kind of sitting in the middle to kind of break away from the monotony. I don't know about monotony. I'm very excited for the game. but the monotony of just the format chilling as we're waiting for the new set to release. And this is actually where we got the news of the brand new stuff coming down the pipeline. So let's check out this trailer. That's right, IBO is coming to the Gundam card game. Super exciting, right? Like, I can't tell you guys how much the people in my community have been talking about IBO and wanting it as one of the core tenets of this game. The fact that it's coming with set 5, and not only is it coming in set 5, but it is coming with the introduction of the brand new color purple. So here we see Gundam Barbados 4th form. We know nothing about it. They've got the blurry levels and costs. They got the blurry, I don't know, the 3-5, something like that going on in the bottom right corner. We see a link, but we don't see. So clearly they're keeping stuff from us. It is a legendary, which you can see in the top right corner, which is great. It's the key card from the starter deck. So just what does it do? But I'm so excited to see what purple does. And it finally confirms that our 5th color is purple. A lot of people were speculating yellow, which could have like obviously leaned into the life gain stuff that the other games do, or potentially black. Right, in black you got like level manipulation in one piece. You have like energy marker generation in Fusion World. You have like blocker turbo in Digimon. But no, we've got purple. Couple of avenues for them to go with purple. If you go for one piece, that's the ramp color, but we already have that with green, right? We have first contact. We've got Gundam Wing bird mode. So instead, the other stuff that purple does in other Bandai games, well, if we look at Digimon, there's like a lot of graveyard recursion stuff there. So maybe it's a graveyard recursion strategy. That would be super cool. And kind of how that ties into the IBO strats, right? Like a lot of lore behind the pilots and the way that they connect to the mechs and stuff like that. So how they're going to integrate that, very interested to see. And then to kind of bring it all together, we got a few new product announcements for the most part. So they announced this like dice set, which I think is really pretty actually. They showcased the case. They also showcased the dice live on the link station. They look really pretty. I'm usually not someone who tends to get these kinds of accessories, but if I happen to have one in my hand, I'm not necessarily going to say no. They look really pretty. I like what they've done with the RX-78 theming. I think the blue trim is really nice, and I look forward to them adding onto that and doing things like red, green, black, what have you, wing, so on and so forth for the other suits. Pretty exciting stuff. I think that looks really cool. We also got resources. So they're really going hard on resources in terms of trying to provide as many as they can. But we got it with the Hero Ryuyu. We got the pilot in the front. You got the Wing Gundam in the back. Clearly, that's a theme that they're going to be leaning on, as we could see it with Zex, we can see it with Char, we can see it with Atherin here. So clearly a theme that they're moving forward to. So if you're a fan of those specific kinds of things, they've got a lot of events in Japan that are going to be handing them out. We're probably going to get these sometime, somewhere, at least in the rest of the global market. Just have to see what events will be distributing these for us. And then iconic sleeves. So if you're a fan of something more generic, like the back of the card, which I love those kinds of sleeves, you can get the card game logo 1. They got the RX-78. They got the Charzaku 2, or they got Overflowing Affection, which again, very pretty card, even in its base rarity. So those are going to be things. When are they going to be available for us here in the West? I don't know, but they're there. And if you really need them right away, I'm sure you guys can get yourself hooked up with a Japanese service to be able to ship those over to you guys. And as a final little cherry on top, they have also announced that they're going to start doing reveals soon on social media. We're still a little bit early, so I don't suspect it's going to happen right away. But look, as we're getting into soon May, June, July, about that 1.5 months away period is really when Bandai pushes to do the reveals. So what they've been doing for Fusion World, which is nearing the release of the 6th set. So I suspect that we're probably going to start getting those pretty soon. So super exciting. I'm super jazzed for the game. And I can't wait till we get more. With that said, I'll catch you guys on our next one.